Welcome to this, our introductory episode, where we introduce our podcast and explain exactly what we hope to accomplish here and what you can expect to hear if you choose to follow us and subscribe. So this is the State of the World podcast, and our goal here is to report on events around the world with some analysis and historical background information to help our listeners and the readers of our newsletter better understand exactly what's going on and how it affects the United States and the world in general. So the way we look at it, the world is an increasingly unstable and scary place when one takes into account the plots and goals of several authoritarian states, ongoing terrorist wars spreading throughout the Third World, multiple border conflicts involving nuclear powers, and let's not leave out the increasing instability of the United States, as this once indispensable nation beats a confused retreat from generations of leadership of the Democratic West. With the current Biden administration, that trend may be halted or reversed, but we have yet to see for sure exactly what's going to happen there. Americans tend to, as a nation, look inward to our own issues and faults, while outside the rest of the world is slowly, or quickly at times, smoldering like an old campfire that was not properly extinguished. In time, that campfire will come back to roaring life, endangering the entire forest. Substitute low-level armed conflicts and ongoing international border disputes for the campfire, and the world for the forest, and I think you can get the idea. In many instances, the United States and our Western allies have ended up in conflicts that had been brewing for a long time before we noticed. The goal of this podcast and the associated newsletter, both titled State of the World, is to bring to your attention those events, conflicts, and issues that can, and sometimes do, expand into larger, more dangerous forest fires that threaten the stability and the safety of the entire world, along with, of course, the safety and security of the United States. So with this goal of tracking, analyzing, and reporting out military and political events, we hope to do so on a weekly basis, or more often as events warrant. As events in the U.S. become more violent and unstable, which is the trend we've seen in the last several years, the attention of many in this country are pulled into examinations of American domestic troubles, often to the detriment of a close examination of the dangers lurking in nearly every corner of the globe. This is a critical point in history, and my goal is to highlight events beyond America's horizon, as well as reporting on America's increasingly turbulent domestic scene. Every writer and analyst carries biases in how they see the world and report on it. I will be clear on my own biases. I believe that democracy is best. Authoritarian or totalitarian regimes such as we see in China, Russia, Turkey, North Korea, Iran, and elsewhere are dangerous to the world order. The United States must return to the democratic ideals, democratic with a little d, the idea that every vote counts, the idea that we need to support people and governments around the world that believe the same as we do, and that we all recognize that we are in an ongoing conflict with those self-same authoritarian and totalitarian regimes. China, Russia, North Korea, Iran are all working against the Western world, the so-called liberal democracies. And this is the term liberal in this case does not refer to liberal versus conservative as we see in American politics, but the old-style phrasing as opposed to authoritarian, or the traditional monarchy type of governments we've seen in the past. We reject the strongman theory of history. We, the United States, has grown and benefited and prospered with a democratic society, a democratic system, and belief in Republican values. Again, Republican in this case with the little r, and democratic with the little d. Not partisan politics, but the basic ideals of the United States. As long as we, the United States and the American people, continue to hold those truths that should be so self-evident, and we work to protect those beliefs around the world, we will be in a safer place. Our friends around the world, our fellow democracies, will be in a better place. If we ignore or if we allow those authoritarian and totalitarian regimes and movements around the world to gain more traction, to somehow convince us that we need to retreat from the world, we'll be right back where we were in the 1930s and 1940s, where we had fascist, Nazi, and communist and militarist regimes around the world pushing outward that plunged the world into war. The U.S. must remain engaged. We will be looking at the events around the world with an eye toward what is the American involvement, what involvement should America have, or whether it's something we don't need to be involved in. Not every conflict, every war, every crisis needs American military intervention. Sometimes merely political or economic or diplomatic intervention. Sometimes perhaps not at all. But we cannot ignore the world. And so that's one goal here, is to show you and speak to you about these events and issues around the world that may or may not have direct impact on our lives, but as we've seen out throughout history, relatively small things or small issues or unimportant things or unimportant issues can grow and do grow into that large forest fire we alluded to earlier that sometimes in our history have engulfed the world. So, there you have it. My personal goal is to keep my listeners and the readers of the newsletter informed of these dangerous goings-on around the world that may not get the attention they deserve in mainstream media. I hope you come along on the ride. Please visit our website at stateoftheworld.substack.com and subscribe to our newsletter and podcast. Both new podcast and newsletter are hosted by Substack, substack.com, substack.com, and our website name is stateoftheworld.substack.com. So visit us, take a look at our articles, follow us along on the podcast, and we hope you enjoy the adventure. Thank you very much. Take care, and God bless.